So the conversation I want to have with Ben Omolo and Philip KISIA when he gets here is, Ben.
Yes.
People miss this turn at Standard Group.
Yeah. I hope he has not gotten himself to Mlolongo.
Maybe it's the same thing that has happened again this morning.
He's arrived.
He's
Oh, he's here. Okay, he'll tell us. Maybe that's what happened to him.
Yeah.
But I was actually driving in this morning and asked myself, is there enough sufficient signage to tell you that you have arrived at Standard Media Group?
No.
I'll tell you, City, yes. The gate is imposing and it's written Standard Media Group. One.
So you need to be in front of it for it to be imposing.
There's a signboard at the gate.
That microscopic
side.
signboard.
Yes. That has a newspaper and it's written Standard Media Group. There's a giant double billboard
Where?
at the wall of Standard Group.
But it's past the gate.
It's just past the gate.
How useful
Right?
is that?
It shows you everything. I mean, it's KTN. There are three signages that tell you.
If you're walking,
We
yes.
have the most signages of any building along this road.
If you're walking, yes. And do all these buildings have the sort of visitors we have on a daily basis who come at the hours when we expect them to come?
Yeah, there are people who come in the morning at 8 to those beer
Then
shops.
how do they miss that signage?
But I think it's something which we need to address.
Yeah.
Because several people have been passing it. So we need to address and see how to improve it.
You know the standard solution, Ben?
Yeah.
Bumps.
Yeah.
Put bumps before
You
standard.
slow down.
So everybody slows down.
And you will see it.
And finds out where am I.
Yes. And everybody will slow down and know, okay, so this is where I am. Oh, yes.
People who regularly go to the airport, you may not know this, but the way the mind works, you get on this road, you're thinking of airport.
Yes.
Yeah. your
It suddenly hits
destination.
you. I was supposed to turn here, and you were actually passed.
It's automatic for you. Philip KISIA, former town clerk in Nairobi. Good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
We were just debating, did Philip miss the turn?
Not exactly. I think my driver just took a wrong route while I was on phone. So,
So where did he take you?
Huh?
Industrial area?
Somewhere.
Eh, Pole. Ben, we'll have to do something.
We have to do something.
Something has to be done.
Maybe at the end of the Southern Bypass Expressway, we also put a signboard, then turn
Yes.
in this direction to the Standard Group.
Standard Group 200 meters. Standard Group 50 meters.
Signage, yeah.
10. 5.
Countdown.
Yes. You have arrived. Okay. Philip, good morning.
Good morning to you.
You had a long afternoon yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
Analyzing.
From 2:30 to 10.
Not a bad one, is it?
It was long.
It was long.
It was.
But also it was a good opportunity for you to actually sit back. You are invested in Nairobi City County. You've been a town clerk. You have wanted to be governor of Nairobi. You have wanted to be an MP in a Nairobi constituency. You have been chairman of NCBA. It's called
NCBDA.
NCBDA, yes.
And I found a trustee of KEPSA.
And all, you see, all those things. That means that it's a conversation that was close to your heart.
It was.
So you were watching it and you were intentional about it.
Exactly.
Higher. There were two debates. We'll be talking about both debates and how they fared, and then look overall. Do we have suitable candidates who are seeking to lead us in Nairobi, to govern Nairobi? Ben,
Yeah.
as this debate obviously was organized by the Secretariat, which brings together the Media Council of Kenya, the Media Owners Association, the Kenya Editors Guild, and you've been working behind the scenes for over a year preparing for this debate. Did it live up to your billing in everything that you'd been working towards?
I'll start by saying yes, it did. The objective of the debates is really for the candidates to have an opportunity to come forward and discuss their agenda. What do they intend to do for the positions they are seeking? So we asked that, and we incorporated the Nairobi gubernatorial debate specifically because of the importance of Nairobi. If you look at it as the capital city, and also that we generate a lot of our GDP from Nairobi County. So in that aspect, we were able to achieve the outcome. And first, we've got to say that it was good that a good number of the candidates turned out. I think for the first one, 2 did not turn up. but each and every one of them was invited to come for the debate. I think it is important for us to say that, one, the debates are supposed to be an opportunity for the candidates to discuss what they intend to do, but it's also a sense of accountability, so that then the people can ask you questions, because the questions are really to provide clarity on what you want to do, and specifically for the undecided voters, or even the ones who could be swayed, because really it's a discussion. You can change before you cast your vote, then can have a sense of clarity in terms of the choice they're making. So that's the whole purpose of all the debates. And so we look forward to the upcoming deputy presidential debates on the 19th and the 26th, when we have the presidential debates. So we hope that this was a fast, good run, and we look forward to the other two.
You know, we opened up the phone lines for a bit in the 7 o'clock hour,
Yes.
and many of the callers were saying, you should have had those people all together so we can judge them together, you know, in the Kenyan speak, wholesale.
Yes.
Yeah. Why didn't you do that?
Okay. I think this year we have had less candidates for different positions, but the guidelines and the rules are such that for those who are below 5%, then they have a separate one earlier on in the afternoon, and then later in the evening, then you have the ones who have more than 5%. So that is the rules that were adopted in 2017. However, I'm sure KISIA, who discussed the conversation throughout, could be able to analyze whether that, and specifically that's why the panel remained the same panel throughout. So then they would be the ones to kind of bring the harmony of what were the discussions. Now, again, different candidates would want to debate with different members, but because we set those rules in 2017, those are the rules of the debate that we are still
But what's the
adhering
rationale
to.
for those rules, Ben?
The rationale here is the threshold that you need to have to then debate. If you also think through it, even in the US, there are generally several candidates who participate in the presidential debate or the governor's debate, but not all of them get to the national debate session. So basically what you want is to be able to have those who have a reasonable potential of getting elected. Now, you can argue that at the point we're doing the debate, I'm 5% or less, but I could speak so well, so persuasively, and win. Well, that scientifically, that has never really happened, but it's possible. But we developed this just so that to also manage the numbers.
But perhaps there should have been other debates before this, so that you have your quarterfinals, semifinals, and this is the final, so we know.
Yeah.
That, would it not have made more sense? Because it's
The quarters and semis are the polls.
yes, but what I'm saying is when you have a situation where people are vying for a particular position, there are those who have an advantage. They already have an advantage because if you've been a politician and you have been elected to a certain post, people already know you. But it doesn't mean, when we talk about a level playing field, this newcomer also ought to be able to, and you'll say, yes, that's why we had this debate with them. But it isn't a debate if people aren't talking to each other.
Precisely, because some of the feedback we've had or that has been collated so far, a good number of people believe Haman did very well.
Our caller told us the same thing.
Exactly. So you may have a point, but these are the rules that we have set. Perhaps what could be done
Do your own
future.
debate.
Perhaps in future, maybe what we could do is to enhance maybe the town halls or the previous gubernatorial debates as you pick up momentum. So that there are more sessions, and then, as you say, you then have a sifting, so that then there's a sense of validity. Because again, somebody would question in terms of the polls, and you've just had a session with Maggie. Somebody could argue that because I'm not that well known, and how come my people would never have asked my own followers, none of them has ever been interviewed. Somebody could argue about the polls. But yes, I think that's valid. We could look at ways of improving.
CT, speaking on behalf of the Secretariat, thank you very much for your feedback. We'll take it into advisement.
Meaning, CT, go and conduct your own polls. And while you're at it, conduct your own debates. Yes. Okay.
Philip, the two debates. Do you feel that the Nairobi people got value in having two separate debates? Just going in the same line of question that CT is raising.
Yeah, well, Latif, first of all, thank you for hosting me. I think, hosting a debate is expensive, both in terms of minutes or time, in terms of money, in terms of manpower, in terms of everything. It's an expensive affair. And I can tell you for free that getting sponsors to host a debate is not very easy. It's not a very easy affair. So I think the organizers must be congratulated for putting up a very, very good show. And market segmentation is something that is there in life. I mean, you can't avoid it. So you have to be placed where you belong, right? So I think it was necessary to have the two debates. You saw the quality of debate in round one. I think it was, it was fairly low, and it did
Quality
not
of
meet.
response
It
or quality
didn't
of
meet
debate?
the debate in total. Round one. I mean, it didn't meet the expectations of most people. But I must say that the young man, I think it was Haman.
Yeah, Haman Grewal of Safina.
This young man has a future. I mean, he has time on his side. It was an opportunity for him to explain himself. And I think a good exposure. So not all was lost. Now, the other thing is that, and then if you look at the second debate, I think the second debate was, well debated. But if you ask me, I think 60% of the time was lost in personality issues. So the voters didn't really get an opportunity to interrogate the fellows' manifestos, programs, vision. That was given very little time. So maybe in future, the moderators need to concentrate more on
the issues.
On the issues rather than personality.
Do you think, Philip, that maybe that drama is also what elevated what you call quality of debates? It provided entertainment and kept you glued and watching and waiting. So, okay, Sawa, you've thrown that punch and it's landed below the belt. Now, can you throw one onto the face?
Well, I mean, entertainment is allowed. But when you turn the whole debate into, comedy, then you don't, I don't think that was the objective, having a comedy show. This was, a debate of serious minds. And we had expected that the time that had been allocated, which was 90 minutes, was properly utilized. So I'm not saying that we should not have entertainment, because entertainment kept people glued on their screens. But less of entertainment would have been useful, and more of serious content should have been, given more time. So maybe 30% of entertainment and 70% of serious matters.
But, the discussions had guidance. So are we saying those whom we had given the task of guiding these conversations did not do a good job? Or are we saying that the candidates themselves preferred to have this banter between themselves as opposed to actually addressing issues which they will all claim they have in their manifestos?
I mean, if you ask me, I think at a certain point, I think the moderators allowed the debate to go off track. They shouldn't have allowed. But I think that lady, I can't remember her name, I think she was pretty firm. I mean, sometimes maybe you'd have thought... The second debate. Zubeida, yeah. You could maybe say that she was unfair at a certain points, but I think it was necessary to keep the debate on track. So, I mean, every day is a learning experience. I'm sure that you've used some of the challenges that you faced this time round to make the future debates even better. So it's a learning process. Anytime we keep on learning, I think the debates that we had this year or so far are better organized, planned than we had the previous time.
You spoke about the quality of debate in the first round, and you say you found it wanting. If looking at the candidates, Kenneth Nyamwamu, Esther Waringa, Nancy Mwadime, and Herman Grewal, they are diverse candidates from various backgrounds, and they have different personalities and characteristics. None of them is a seasoned politician. Would that mean something? Each of them is actually getting into politics for the first time, seeking to lead Nairobi. Doesn't passion count?
You see, Latif, Nairobi is like a huge multinational corporation. Okay? Whereas political experience would be necessary and useful. But I think managerial skills are more important. In fact, if you ask me, I think probably any person who aspires to be the CEO of Nairobi should have about 70% managerial and leadership skills. Political experience counts because then you are dealing with MCS who probably sometimes may not be at your level. You are dealing with different political interests. So sometimes there's a need to balance. So those people who were being referred to as fringe candidates should have used the 70% mark out of 100% to explain themselves. So 30% is actually the practical, the nuts and bolts that are required to do the job once you're inside the office. But before you get into the office, you must demonstrate that you have some skills and competencies that can enable you do the job. That I did not see coming out, right? Apart from, I think, can't remember his name.
Kenneth.
Kenneth. And the young man. I mean, I think they made an attempt to prepare for the debate. They made an attempt. But for the rest, I think it's more of comedy.
You felt
than
they were
anything else.
unprepared?
Totally.
City, did you feel that the ladies were unprepared?
Let's look at it this way. They had a team. If they didn't, then KISIA's point is valid, because you cannot aspire for a seat such as the one of the governor of Nairobi and not have a team to work with you. So I'm going to take the view that they had a team. The team is to blame. They were inadequate to the task, because I would have assumed that they would gather the information that they feel would put their candidate in good stead, so that when they speak, people feel this person knows. Because really it boils down to preparedness. If you look at the debate between what we call the
Tier 1.
Yes, exactly, because these people knew what they were talking about. You don't doubt that they know what they're talking about. They may deliver it differently, but they both know what they're talking about. And there's a great divide between them and the others. That one, there is no question. It is clear. So the other countries that we speak of, when KISIA says they're well prepared, that's putting it very mildly.
Ben, you were there as the candidates were arriving. Were the candidates, all these candidates were arriving with, teams? There's a communications advisor, there's a brand advisor, image advisor, political advisor, and all those, right?
Some of them had teams as they arrived. I think the critical thing that we need to ask is how prepared, because they are given sufficient notice. It's like a job interview. You're trying to impress a panel of people to select you. So there's got to be what you'd call adequate preparation for the job, or basic understanding about what are the issues that are critical to the Nairobians. And then having clear approaches or solutions that then would endear you to the people. Because basically what we are hoping that the voters would do is to select that one candidate has practical solutions, understands, and would then provide that or execute it in a better manner. Because that's really it. So perhaps because the Tier 1 candidates said that their manifestos would be issued later this week, maybe that could have been an issue. But the other Tier 2 participants should have prepared much better. And that's what one would expect for anybody who is coming for a debate of this level. What are the critical issues for that Nairobians are facing, and what are my proposed solutions? So that then you are very clear, you're articulate, and then the voters can say, you are the right choice.
I mean, both of you gentlemen have sat in interview panels. There are people who interview poorly, but they are good performers. Is that not a possibility as well?
When you have placed a product in the market for sale, there is one thing that you cannot ignore. There's one component. And marketers will tell you that everything's about marketing. So if you cannot sell your product or the qualities of your product, then of course nobody will buy your product. So that component of having the ability to sell and market your product is important. So, if you cannot explain yourself in an interview, how are you going to explain yourself to the customer? That will worry any potential employer. Yeah, you must first of all be able to convince the person giving the job that you can do the job, that you are the person who is capable of representing the employer to the potential customer. So, as my colleagues have said, I think tier 2, the candidates in tier 2 still have a long way to go. They need to know that when you're going for any form of interview, that preparation is necessary. Not just necessary, adequate preparation is necessary. You need to do a lot of research. You need to do a lot of prepping. You don't just walk into an interview room as if you're going to have a cup of coffee. Yeah, it's not a coffee date. This is a serious matter. You are talking about, you're asking people to make you the CEO of a huge multinational corporation that accounts for over 30% of GDP. Surely, if you can't explain yourself, how do you expect to be given the job? So the first point of Nini is actually you
Sell
as
yourself.
a candidate being able to sell yourself. There is no other route. Which other route do you use?
There's none.
Sitting there like a zombie and expecting people to know what you're able to deliver? Surely.
People should be able to pick the sincerity in you just by looking at you.
Okay, that again, I can tell you, Latif. People can tell who is being sincere. People are not stupid. They can see through your eyes. When you are lying, they can see this is a liar. When you have integrity issues, people can tell that this man has integrity issues. If you stole your neighbor's chicken the other day and you're here asking for a job to take care of chicken, they will be very careful. They will say, but is it the same guy who stole chicken, Latif's chicken yesterday? How can we give him the job of taking care of 100 chicken?
Yeah.
So, marketing one's person is important. You must have that competence. And these skills are acquired over a period of time. And that's why I said that the young man can be mentored. Let us not dismiss him. At the age of 25, I think he put up an excellent show. He has a bright future. And I don't mind to be one. I am now an old man.
Yeah.
I'm almost heading towards the other side of the world. Yeah. But I think I still have energy to pass some of the skills and experiences that I've acquired over a period of time. But for the rest who are much older than him, I think most of the other candidates in tier 2, I think all of them were, over 50. Over 50. So if you've had the luxury of living for 50 years and you cannot still explain yourself, surely, oh my God, something needs to be done.
Let's take a break. It's 27 minutes to 10. Philip KISIA is a former Nairobi town clerk. He is also a man who was one of the panelists yesterday at the gubernatorial debate at the Catholic University. And we're talking about yesterday's debate, the performance of the candidates. We'll come back and look at tier 1 and now focus on tier 1. Did we pick out the issues? Who came out with the issues? Philip, are you using an Android phone or an iOS?
It's a Samsung.
Okay, it's an Android phone. Now, there's an app called Pocket by Mozilla. Pocket, instead of every time you go online and then you open a tab, a new link, it opens a new tab, and you end up having like 17 different tabs on your phone, you can actually use Pocket. It consolidates all those into one app, So you can save whatever you want to consume later, whether it's a podcast, whether it's, for example, yesterday's interview, yesterday's debate, this morning's interview, or any other content that you're consuming online. You save it all there, and then you'll just be able to access it. You can even access it offline. So say you are somewhere where you don't have access to the internet, you're flying somewhere, you can just read and listen and watch what you want to watch. Pocket by Mozilla. It's called selling.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll show you how to download it.
We learn.
Yes.
But at this age, I use my phone for the applications I use are not very many. You can imagine. I know receiving messages, calling.
That's it.
And WhatsApp, email.
Why are you limiting yourself?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Our guests this morning, Ben Omolo, who's the Chief Officer for Operations and Strategy at Standard Group, and Philip KISIA, former town clerk. We are talking about yesterday's debate. Ben, why was Sakaja late? Did he explain himself?
Well, he came late and he apologized, but he didn't explain the reason. All we can assume was Polycarp's response that they will deal with the traffic jam.
What did you make of that? Of his appearance coming in late and the jibes that he immediately got in and threw at Polycarp? My competitor is used to a head start. I was giving him a head start.
Eric, I think that was most unfortunate. That debate was not about Polycarp Igathe. That debate was about Nairobi City County, which accounts for 30% of GDP. So by him walking late into a debate, shows, told us a lot of things. That my friend Johnson, Arthur, Sakaja has no humility. That he does not believe in time as a resource. And when I was in school many years ago, I was told that time is the most important resource that a human being has to deploy for anything. So if he can mismanage time, not only his time, if he can mismanage, and if he has no respect for time for millions of Kenyans, let him be told how many people were watching that show on that day. I'm told it's about 11 million. So 11 million times the minutes that he came in late is what is going to cost him. So, and that also showed something else. That this young man who has a future is a bit arrogant. You don't walk in, when you're aspiring to be a leader, not a leader, but when you're aspiring to get into a position of leadership, you must be humble.
And show humility.
Okay? So that came out extremely bad. He needed to apologize. He was actually sarcastic. Yeah? And, I don't want to be very kind to him. I think that was a bit childish. Those are tactics and styles that the old politicians would use. You're coming in late so that people can notice your presence. I think that is a bit stupid and childish. And whoever was advising to that should know that he or she failed flat on their feet. That is not what you do. That is not what people expect you to do. I think we live in a modern age where respect for others is of paramount importance. And surely I think he totally missed that one. And in fact, if I was, I just failed to rate them. I failed to rate them. I forgot to rate them. Okay? Because of that cardinal mistake that he made. I respect time, and I'm sorry that I came in a bit late. I can tell you that Johnson, Arthur, Sakaja, on a scale of 10, I removed 2. So while I gave Igathe 6.5, 6.5 out on a scale of 10, I gave this young man 5 for coming in late. Because you don't display that level of arrogance.
Do you think Igathe took advantage of the 20 or so minutes that he was there alone on the panel?
Well, he made an attempt, but I think he probably assumed that Sakaja would not walk in. I think that's my assumption. You know, he had a leisure.
So he didn't maximize.
He had a leisure of 20 minutes. I think he should have really maximized that absence, the 20-minute absence, taken full advantage, taken control of the debate. He missed out on that opportunity.
I think it's important to mention that all candidates are well appraised of the time in terms of expectations, the protocols that will be observed, so that they also can come in early. There's a holding area for them, so they can then prep or whatever is necessary for them. And so time is clearly communicated to the candidates. And so we look forward to the subsequent debates that those who are coming will be there on time.
Was Igala there before time?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Do you think he took advantage of that moment when he was alone, enjoying the limelight by himself, answering the questions that he's being asked?
I think he could have optimized it, but again, because the conversations were really still being moderated by the moderators, he could have just managed it within the parameters or the boundaries that they allowed. However, I think because they all have the 2 minutes introductory, and since he didn't have the opposing candidate or the competing candidate with him, then that introduction, in my view, when you're alone, would have been more powerful, gives you an opportunity to then put forward a case. You could actually optimize your 2 minutes into a kind of a summary of your CV. And maybe this is what we need to, as a lesson to the upcoming debaters, is greater preparation. I think the other thing that was missing was just a distinctive, especially for the tattoos. How do you distinguish your arguments? How do you stand out? That was not coming out very clearly. But the other one also is just ability to articulate your points much better. So even if there are communication teams, I would push it back. I think most of the communication teams need to do better to help their candidates in terms of messaging, so that the messaging is very, very clear. Maybe that's what Philip is mentioning, that Polycarp would have taken advantage with better messaging in the opening 20 minutes.
But don't you think, I mean, if we had this discussion with Eric earlier on in the day, back in the morning, and he told me, you know, even as you keep talking about the teams, the candidate is the one who chooses the team. So at some level, if there's a failure, the failure is with the candidate. But then, if we then talk about failure and spread it out democratically, then we're saying that these candidates, tier 1 or 2, they and their teams didn't fully grasp the import of what they were getting into, and so did not prepare adequately. Because what stood out was that inadequacy of preparation, of using those 90 minutes to actually get people to understand not just what you're about, but what you actually can do and will do.
Precisely. And if you observed the first session, there were several points where the candidates were going way beyond the time allocated.
Yeah.
Now, I think one is a lesson on how to manage and to speak eloquently and be able to bring out your fact within that time period. I think more and more, and it's part of our democratization, we are improving every election cycle. One of the things that I think our candidates need to spend time on is just observing and rehearsing from the videos of some of the eloquent debaters. Right now, it's not like in our days when we just had newspapers. Today, you go to YouTube, you can get videos of Obama, you can get videos of candidates who are extremely persuasive in terms of their speaking abilities, in terms of their messaging. So the learning of how to manage your 60 seconds, what you'd call your highlight or your punch or your thrust of the messaging, can be done pretty well. So we hope that as we go forward, this will be something that will be improved as part of our political process. So how do we deepen democratization? But the candidates themselves also is to enhance their ability to position their arguments and their manifestos.
Did any of the candidates actually impress you, Philip, in terms of this is their proposed priority area if they're elected as governor of Nairobi? Did anyone show you that they have a priority or a focus area?
You see, number one, when you are aspiring to provide leadership, you must understand what the people expect you to do. That should be your first call. You must have a very clear understanding. What are Nairobians expecting of me? So you, as a person who's aspiring to get into that office, you must then develop strategies that will meet the people's expectations. I can tell you from where I was sitting, I think both candidates appear to have a knowledge of what needs to be done. But they are not, they don't have an in-depth. Okay? What are the priority areas that Nairobians are looking for? And a priority in Westlands may not be necessarily a priority in Embakasi area. So you need really to go deep. You need to research. You need to work with people who have been there before, officers who are at the city hall, to tell you, and even residential associations. So what I'm saying is that you need to bring on board all the key stakeholders, have town hall meetings, listen to them, and then provide solutions. Because as a person who is going to be given that job, number one, I've had people talk about my vision for Nairobi. Your vision is yours, my friend. That is your vision. It cannot be our vision. A vision of a people is normally a shared vision. That you've sat down with the people of Nairobi, of the people that you want to provide leadership to or for. You've listened to them and you've crafted something and you've agreed that this is our vision. So as the driver sitting on that particular seat at that point in time, you are telling them that this is how I intend to go about delivering your vision. So when I listen to Polycarp, Polycarp seems to be very clear. He seems to have a very clear matrix of implementation. That this is how I can implement, this is how I can get the job done. Yeah. On the other side, Sakaja seems to have more information, but he has no clue of how that can be implemented. Because when you talk about debt retirement, that didn't come out clearly. Nairobi has a debt portfolio of about, I think, almost 80 billion shillings. How are you going to retire 80 billion within 5 years? And your, your cash streams are X amount of money. So I think more time, they needed to spend more time understanding the issues, and even more time crafting strategies to deal with the issues that Nairobi expect them to tackle.
You say that Igathe appears to have a formula of how he'd implement. Give me an example. What did he say that showed you that he knows what the problem is and this is how he'd like to go about the problem?
Let me just pick an example. He talked when he was talking about the issue of infrastructure. Okay, I think he had mentioned about how he was going to raise funding, to fund those infrastructure projects. Okay, he seemed to be clear on the sources of funding, and he also said that being a capital city, that you cannot be a lone ranger, that you need to work with other government agencies. You need to probably align your strategy to the national strategy so that you are accommodated. Because if you try and work alone, if you try and work in isolation to the national government, you can be ignored. And the resources that the financial resources that that will be available for you in 5 years may not be sufficient for you to deal with what you intend to deal in a period of 5 years. So I think Igathe was very clear. And probably because of his background in the private sector, he has a lot of experience in private sector and some experience in banking. On the other side, of course, Sakaja is still a young man. He has a bit of experience, political experience, but he totally lacks managerial experience. If you look at his CV, there's nothing that will show you that, this is where he has been, this is what he has done, and this is what he's able to do.
But he's been able to articulate. He understands the issues. He's served in the National Assembly.
Eric, understanding the issues, you can sit down and be prepped.
And his deputy is a manager.
You can sit down and be prepped on what needs to be done. You can sit down and be prepped. But sitting, occupying space, and doing the job. Experience is not something that you can buy in a shop.
You don't read.
You cannot read experience. You can't go in a shop. You can't even go to Harvard School of Management. Kenny School of Leadership or any school of management, and tell them that what, I want to buy 10 years experience. Experience is something that is acquired over a period of time. You must do it. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail, but in failing you learn, you earn experience. So you can't, experience is not something that you can wish away. You can't buy it. You can't read a textbook and say I have experience.
Nairobi has tried a manager. Nairobi has tried a politician. Is there anything wrong with Nairobi trying a politician manager?
Well, no. As I said earlier on, Eric, Nairobi, because of its complex nature, you need more of a manager because you are dealing about managing resources, okay? Manpower, money, minutes, marketing, management information systems, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you need a manager to manage those resources. Okay, so 70% of that person should be a manager. But don't forget, you are dealing with politics,
and people.
You are dealing with people. You are dealing with people of different interests. You are dealing with political parties. You are dealing with the MCAs. So if you just come as a total manager, 100% manager, I can tell you not last even for 12 months. You'll be out in the streets. Watakufungia mlango na mshumari.
You need to manage the politics.
Yes.
of what's happening in the city. Ben, in terms of looking at what Nairobi needs and listening to the 6 candidates who came out yesterday, do you feel the Nairobians now are at a better place to make a decision?
I think based on the
performance of the candidates.
Yes, based on the limited exposure and the debate, and they just need to go back and reconcile, they could be able to make what you'd call the best informed choice among the candidates. However, again, I'll still come back to the fact that the Presidential Debate Secretariat, what we're looking at is to build our political systems. My view is that it was a good and an improved engagement with the citizenry. But again, as I have mentioned, I think those who are seeking these positions should familiarize themselves with documents that are in the public domain, and then show that you have understood them and how that will work for you, or how it would be modified for the benefit of the Nairobians, especially, and maybe just to support what Philip says. Earlier last week, the president launched the Nairobi Financial Hub or the Nairobi Financial Center. So you'd expect that somebody picks that up just to kind of pick and put that as part of their conversation. Even if you just give it one of your 2-minute slots, you would basically sneak it in there, because you basically want to show that you're in touch with what's going on, what Kenya is looking out for from a bigger perspective, so that then there is a sense in which not only do you understand the issues at the grassroots, but you also have got that understanding of where the country desires to go, where the capital city intends to go. I think I didn't hear any one of them, I cannot recall any one of them talking about the greater metro plan of Nairobi. Now, when you look at Nairobi, in light of your engagement with Kiambu or Machakos, because that's what the bigger Nairobi is, or Kajiado. That didn't come out. Yet the person who intends to be the governor of Nairobi must not only see Nairobi, but must understand the percentage of Nairobians who live in those emerging towns and centers, and how then to connect them in. That I didn't hear. And so what you'd expect more and more is clarity of the vision that people want. And perhaps this is where we need to ask the question where the benchmarking trips all end up. Because that aspect of saying we are benchmarking against this place and stuff like that, all these intercities relationships, there should be more and more of it. I mean, we just hosted Afro Cities in Kisumu about a month ago. One would expect at least a mention of that in their philosophy, that this is what they gathered and this is what they intend to do from the Afro Cities. So these are the kind of things which I think we have now. But more and more is to say that the debate is about accountability to the people. And so I hope that with the same passion we are holding the debates, we as media would also ensure that it's the State of the County address is not just another theory, but people can answer, this is what I promised, this is where I've reached, this is what I'm doing, so that then there's a sense of accountability. That's the role the media should bring, accountability to the people.
Spice up your life.
Thank you very much, Ben. Ben Omolo is the Chief Officer in charge of Operations and Strategy at Standard Group. Philip KISIA is a former. What are you now? I mean, you are former town clerk, you are former CEO of KICC, you are former NCBA, you are founding trustee of KEPSA. What are you now?
You see, first of all, I'm not former. I'm the last town clerk and Chief Executive Officer, City of Nairobi. Please get our facts right. That is a historical fact. That's a historical fact. It may be painful for you, Eric, but that is it. That is it.
So you are former, last?
I am not former. I am the last.
Because after him, there was no other town clerk.
No. The last town clerk and the first and last Chief Executive Officer, City of Nairobi. But right now, there are many things that you can do because people think that, in fact, I get worried, Eric. There are people who have served for 10 years in public space. They have been either governor, they have been minister in Uhuru's government, but they are working and struggling so hard to be in Raila's government. I can see them struggling. You need a break. There is something you can do out of public service. In fact, just taking care of your family, spending time with the family, quality time. Because I can tell you, Eric, when you're in public space, something that is ignored, something that any parent should not ignore, your children, your family. You discover that after all these things that you do, either in private sector or public sector, you need family. So let them take a break from public service. Let other people serve. But I am a farmer.
Okay.
I farm coffee. I consult in many areas. In fact, after this, I'll be talking to my brother. I'm a trained strategist and a fellow of management. So I'm sure I can add some value to the Standard Media Group.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Philip.